Welcome to Sudsinnati, a show about the history and culture of beer in the Cincinnati area. Today we'll be talking to the brewmaster from Christian Moerlein and going on a tour of the forgotten areas of Cincinnati's brewing history. So pull up a seat to the bar, grab a pint, and stay with us. Cheers. Brewing in Cincinnati started with the English, but was expanded from its humble beginnings by the arrival of the Germans. The population of German immigrants began to climb during the 1830s. By 1840, 13,000 immigrants resided in Cincinnati, and they brought their love of beer with them. The English breweries produced ales, but the Germans brought a new style of beer with them, the lager. With such a large population in the city, the lager quickly gained popularity outside of the German community to become part of Cincinnati culture. The Germans didn't just influence the style of beer, they also influenced the culture surrounding the consumption of beer. For Germans, drinking was an everyday activity, and they became known for their excessive quantities of beer they were able to consume. It wasn't just a pleasurable pastime. Drinking was an important part of family and social gatherings, and in a strange new country, many German immigrants held strongly to their traditions. The influence of German culture can still be felt in the city today, in the annual Oktoberfest, the popularity of Goethe, and the city's love of beer. Welcome back. I'm your host, Joshua Johns, and today we have our guest, Richard Dubé, brewmaster from Christian Moerlein. Richard, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, when people think of beer in Cincinnati, Christian Moerlein is a name that is just synonymous with great beer. Why is that?
Well, it goes back to 1841, actually, when Christian Moerlein came to this country, and he's given the title of being the first German brewer immigrating to the United States. And you're jumping, but 1981 was the first beer that was declared as being truly under the Reinheitsgebot, the German purity law.
Oh wow!
So that's why Christian Moerlein is such a well-known name.
Now, what is some of your competition? I know that Samuel Adams has been brewing in Cincinnati for a while now. Is there a specific competition that Christian Moerlein feels like they have?
What's interesting, we like not to look at it that way. You have just a thriving culture of beer, and that goes back again, let's say, pre-Prohibition. You have to understand that Cincinnati was one of the fifth biggest mecca of beer in the United States.
Wow.
If I want to kind of throw some numbers at you, we're talking about, in those days, about 250,000 of people in this, call it the Cincinnati area. And Cincinnati was already producing over 1 million barrels of beer in those days.
It's a lot of beer for a small amount of people.
Exactly. We were well known to be a mecca of beer. Unfortunately, the Prohibition kind of killed a lot of those brewers, Christian Moerlein included. And that's what we're seeing coming back now, more and more and more. So everybody that comes into play right now, we're just play together. We still play very, very
nice together. It's like a brotherhood.
Yeah, we play nice together.
You say that Prohibition, kind of killed the Christian Moerlein and a lot of other breweries. What was it, and what brought everything back? What was that kickstart?
Well, when they finally lifted up the prohibition or the rules, my understanding is that there was a kind of a desire to, yes, come back with beer, but not to kind of offend anyone. They came with beer that were very, very light in taste, very neutral, very bland, and that's what people got accustomed to.
Okay.
Whereas the big guys, I call them the big guys, and I have a great respect for them. As you know, I brewed for them, so I know how difficult it is to brew that.
Right.
But we also have to say that it's fairly bland and fairly neutral, very consistent, very high quality, but it is bland and neutral. Now we're seeing, that I kind of used to say I was working with salt and pepper. Now I can't use with the entire spice
The spice rack, yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. So we have access to all those beautiful malts. We have access to all those beautiful hops. And people are not afraid to break down the guidelines of what styles are supposed to be. And they come with something that are kind of just out of this world.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. If I were to go to a bar, what would make me want to choose a Christian Moorline beer over a national brand like Bud Light or Miller Lite?
Okay, my approach is like this, and that's our mission. I think, as most of the people that you talk to have either two images in their mind. It's either the the more commercial brands like the Budweiser and so on, or totally on the other side, the thicker, darker Guinness, Stout, etc. But there's so much more in between. And to answer your question, when you look at the Bud Light, which I have a great respect for because it's very, very difficult to produce, is that at the end of the day, it has been designed to be what it is, which is it's fairly neutral and fairly bland. Okay. My analogy that I use all the time is like, let's say, white sliced bread. Okay. It's wherever you're going to go, you're going to find the perfect loaf. Okay, it's always going to be the same thing. It's very, very consistent, but it is very bland and very neutral.
Right.
So it's more about exposure and education, where you kind of start to develop your taste for different flavors. Think about it. One of the classic. Well, I don't know if I can name it, but Subway. Okay, yeah. Subway, for instance. Okay, 10 years ago, you had what? One choice, white. Okay, a few years later, you had white and wheat. And now when I go to Subway, it takes me 5 minutes to just decide which bread I'm going to use. Right. Okay, that's a little bit the same thing. It's through education, it's through exposure that slowly but surely you develop a certain taste, and you just move from something that's a little bit more or less challenging, if you will, and you get out of your comfort zone, and then you start tasting different things. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring people, to make them understand that what craft beer can be very, very interesting. It's something that you can put on your list of things that I can appreciate once in a while, and that's the idea. Somebody that comes to me and say, "I'm a Bud drinker," I say, "Okay, no problem. Why don't you try this?" And there's a way to approach the the exposure to those different tastes.
Planting that seed and kind of getting a little bit of education.
Yeah.
Now, seeing that Christian Moorline has such a history, in brewing, how do you feel about kind of paving the way for a lot of these, microbreweries that are now opening up in Cincinnati? I mean, they're kind of getting their concept. Christian Moorline kind of started it.
Yep.
They're the ones that paved the way for it. They laid the groundwork, and now you have these small microbreweries that are kind of building on that.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a little sidebar in the sense that I've been in the industry long enough that I've seen the first craft beer revolution. And what I saw in those days is that there was tremendous amount of passion, some money, but now we can say there was not a lot of technical knowledge.
Okay.
And so therefore what happened is that there was a lot of bad beer that got produced over there on the market. And the public was also not very well educated into what craft beer is all about. So they had a craft beer, they didn't like it. And instead of saying, well, I won't drink that one, but it doesn't preclude me to drink something else, they put everything under the same umbrella of craft beer. So this is craft beer, I'm not getting any. So what happened is that it dropped. Now you see a resurgence of this because you still have tremendous amount of passion, you have some money, but now two other things. The brewers themselves are so much more educated than they were. They know more. They have more technical knowledge than they used to have, and the people is better educated. So the point is that it's always about continuous improvement. You want to fine tune your recipe, and when you think you have it, you have to keep on looking at it to make it consistent. If there's one thing in brewing that defines quality, it's consistency. Okay, if I want to claim that I call a beer Over the Rhine or Northern Liberty, it better be the same experience for you every time you have it.
Right.
Going back to again that first craft beer revolution, that was what was missing. People say, "Oh, it's craft, so hey man, hey dude, it's not always the same. It's craft." No, I'm not. I'm sorry. If you're saying that, it's because you just don't know what you're talking about. You
Oof,
don't know.
okay.
You don't know which control point you have to look at. If
Right.
you want to call a beer XYZ, it has to taste like XYZ all the time.
Well, you seem very passionate about this. So what is your favorite part of your job? What is that experience that you love the most about the brewing process?
It's very interesting because I don't know how much you know about my background, but me, I'm a microbiologist, biochemist. Okay, and I started with the big guys, meaning the Molson, the Labatt, Budweiser, et cetera, and conversely to most of the other people, came from quote unquote the homebrewing side of things.
Okay.
Passion for homebrewing, and God, I'm going to make a career out of it. Whereas me, I came with my microbiology, my biochemistry, started in a quality control lab. I was in charge of microbiology and blah, blah, blah. And then slowly but surely kind of developed a great interest into the analytical side of things. So I got my diploma from the Institute of Brewing in London, England, and then I kept on developing that. So me right now, what I love is that I can bring all that more analytical side, but I have finally the ability to, not the ability, but the opportunity to play, like I said earlier, with the entire spice rack. So when you put both together, it gets very, very exciting. We take the traditional styles, come up with a perfect representation of what it is, respect the history of where those styles comes from, and then we keep on pushing the envelope of it, which exactly what Christian Moreline did when he first came here. He was one of the first to dig the tunnels, to realize that what, if I want to do those lagers like we used to in Germany, I better have a better control of temperature. So they used the natural, very steady temperature of the earth, and that's
Right.
why you end up in Over the Rhine now that it's going crazy. It's revived, that people restore those buildings and find a tunnel and a cave and the tunnels and the hills and all that, because there was brewing. Brewing was doing that. So I think that we respect the tradition and we really look for the future, and we're just embarking into playing with all the ingredients and having a blast with it.
Well, Richard, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Stay with us.
My name's John Funchin, and I am a tour guide for American Legacy Tours. We're in the sub-basement cellars of the John Kaufman Brewery. To make lager beer, it needs to be fermented at lower temperatures, somewhere between 40 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit for most styles. And so the very earliest lagers were fermented in caves with ice stacked up against the walls. Well, here in Cincinnati, we had to, of course, dig our own cave-like structures. So they began construction here a few years prior to the brewery opening. And what's nice about this is it's consistently about 60 degrees down here every day of the year. So running chilled water pipes across these racks on the ceiling would very effectively cool these tunnels down to the proper lagering temperatures. In the latter half of the 19th century, you'd have about 40 different breweries in the greater Cincinnati area. Cincinnati has a very dense concentration of it because most of the breweries in Cincinnati were located in this one neighborhood of Over the Rhine. Over the Rhine has been a vibrant neighborhood for a very long time. It really started with the building of the Miami and Erie Canal, which opened for business here in Cincinnati in 1828. And this brought in a huge influx of German immigrants into the city of Cincinnati because industries thrived on that canal. So they had plenty of jobs for these workers. And so the Germans move into Cincinnati, they move into this area, which is bordered on the west and south by that canal. And it was so German here for such a long time that people said that crossing over that canal felt like going over the Rhine. And so all the way up until Prohibition, this neighborhood was roughly 75% German. It was the common language on the street. The masses were in German. There were several German language newspapers down here. And so this caused a lot of chain migration. One person comes from Germany, moves into the Over the Rhine neighborhood in Cincinnati, doesn't have to change his lifestyle at all. It's just like the homeland. He sends a letter back to his family, says, you gotta come here, and then they come too. And so the population would grow, 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 and grow. And it was incredibly vibrant. Germans are known to work hard and to play hard. So industries thrive and entertainment thrives here in this neighborhood, all the way up until, of course, the start of Prohibition, which really kind of ruined the party here. And some of the big brand names, Kaufman, where we are right now, the Vindisch Mulhauser Lion Brewery, the Jackson Brewery, and of course, top dog around Cincinnati was the Christian Moorline Brewery, who was the largest in the state of Ohio and at one point the fourth largest in the nation. And those brands, those 19th century brands, didn't carry over strongly into the 20th century, but when Prohibition was repealed, we saw brands like Hootapool come back, and Schaenling would eventually start producing their own beer as well. We have found a lot of enthusiasm in the last few years. People are more interested in Cincinnati history. Our beer heritage, it did fall out for some time with the rise of behemoth breweries and Hootapool Schaenling shut down and there were no more commercial breweries left in Cincinnati, but that's being renewed. You go to the grocery store, most of the beer that's on the shelf is owned by two major companies, and it's marketed as a variety of different things, but if you drank enough beer in college, you know it all pretty much tastes the same. So once I think especially my generation, we're maturing out of that drinking watery beer in college, we're maturing into drinking better beers, and we're searching out those better beers in craft brewing. We don't want beer that's made with rice and corn and adjuncts and fillers. We want beer that we can taste the hard work that's in it. It's a pride thing as well as a preference. I think the biggest thing to be proud of right now is to be part of a city that is rapidly changing. Cincinnati is definitely going places. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, there was not much going on downtown. You had a lot of people that wanted to just grow up here and then move out, and the only people that were coming in were here to work for P&G or Fifth Third or something like that. And so in the past 10 years, there's been a renewed enthusiasm, and I think the biggest thing to be proud of is to be part of that movement, to dedicate yourself to being a part of this city on the move. And Cincinnati is a place where in other major cities, you could be just another face in the crowd. In Cincinnati, we have this feeling of community. We all know each other. It's like a collection of small towns all in one big city. And so someone with a good idea and enough ambition and even a relatively small amount of influence can really make a big impact on the city of Cincinnati. And I think that's the best thing about this city. We're open to anything. We're open to changing. We're open to new ideas. We're open to ambition.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Sudsinnati. As always, drink responsibly, drink local.